Hey guys, welcome to the ReactJS course part 2. In the first video, we talked about how to set up your own ReactJS project. And in this video, we're going to talk about one of the most fundamental and important concept in React, which is ReactJS components. So let's get started. All right, just to explain, ReactJS is basically a component based library. All right, so what we do in react.js is basically we build components and we reuse those components to make bigger components, and then those bigger components kind of become our app. So our react.js app consists of a lot of components stitched together to create that app. All right, one of the most important thing about component is that first thing, they are modular, and the second thing is they are reusable. All right, so why I say they are module and reusable. So module means you create smaller components and then you use those smaller components to create bigger components. For example, imagine you have a image and text, and then what you do is you use this image text to create like a profile component, like profile info, where you have like image and text. So for example, this image and text is profile info, and now you can use this profile info inside another large component, maybe like a profile page or something, where you have like other info fields as well. You can basically mix match it with everything, like another text fields, name, age, or whatever, right? So basically, the important thing to understand is that you can create like smaller components, image, text, or whatever, and then you can merge those components to create bigger components. And then you also can use those bigger components to create more for further components. All right. The second thing is reusable. So for example, you create this profile info component, and this text and image will be different for all the users, right? They will never going to be same. So you can pass props, which is like configurations. So you can pass props and then you can modify what this text will say and what this image will say. One of the most important benefit of that is that it will make your component reusable. That means that you can write this profile info component once, and then you can use it in multiple places. All right, so when you use it in multiple places, you can provide different props basically inside it, and it will render different results. For example, you can use profile info in one page and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to pass name as Manoj and image as something, right, like from Google or something. And then you can use the profile info in other place in your application, and you just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to use the name as John and image is something else or whatever. All right, so what will happen is that you don't have to call this image tag, you don't have to like write this image tag again and again. You just created a profile info component. Now you can use this profile info component anywhere, and modify whatever you show inside or whatever you do inside using the props. About the props, we're going to talk about that in the next part, in the part 3. Today we are just going to focus on just the modular part of the components, or how to define your own components. All right, so there are like different kind of component. One is class component, what is functional. We are just going to talk about functional component. Right, so let's get started. Let's create our first component. Let's name it profile info.js. One of the most important thing about components is that their first letter will always be in uppercase. For example, here you can see some HTML, right? It's JSX. We are also going to talk about JSX in later videos, but essentially you can right now just assume that it's you know HTML. And you can see, right, like every tag, it's just like lowercase, right? Like header, h is lowercase, I, image is lowercase. So React assumes that it's a HTML tag, but you can define your own components and also can use them like tag here. For example, profile info, right? So once we will define profile info, we will be able to use it like this. The only thing we have to always make sure is that name, the component's name, will always will start with uppercase letter. So in our case, it's profile info. So firstly, I'm going to import React so I can create my own component. Import React from React. And then I'm just going to say const profile info. So a function component is just essentially a function, but in React, that function will be treated as a component. All right. So I'm just going to create a function called profile info. Using the ES6 cat arrow syntax, and I'm going to return something from it like an h1. All right, like say h1 hello. And what essentially React will do is whenever I use this profile info, it's just going to render this. All right, so there is also concept of rendering in React.js, which we will explain in the next videos, but for now you just don't have to worry about anything about all the rendering props or anything. Just focus on how you can create a component. So in order to create a component, you just have to define a function and return some HTML from it. If you don't return HTML from it, or nothing from it, it just it will not work. All right, so I created this profile info and then I exported it. Now I'm going to import that here. So I'm going to use VS Code auto import. So it will auto import the profile info from here and then will render it after image. All right, let's see. So you can see the hello here, right? For example, if I go and change it to maybe this is my first component ever, right? Save it, and yeah, you can see, right? So basically what happened is whatever HTML you will define here, it will be basically imported here with profile info. So for example, if I inspect it, right, you can see the h1, right? Because that's what profile info is. It basically renders whatever HTML we provide inside it. So let's make it a bigger, make it more complex. All right, so I'm just what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to return multiple tags from it. So I'm just going to create a div here and just say h1, and then let's also define a p, right? So for example, I'm creating a profile info component, right? So let's take the h1 as a name, and then p as maybe, let's say, profession, so software developer. And then also do like a image, so let's say image, and we'll give it a random source. So I get a random URL from the a service which will generate random images for us. So we have profile info component, and then we have this div image h1 and p, right? So let's see how that basically shows up here. So you can see the image, right? So let's just bring it to bottom. Right. Okay, so you can see, right? So we have the image, we have the h1, and we have the p, right? So we basically created our own component which we used inside a bigger component. All right, so but what are the benefit, right? Like, what is the benefit? We can also write this whole thing here as well, right? But what is the benefit? The benefit is now I can reuse this component whenever I want. So for example, if I use profile info here again, I don't have to write all that HTML whatever I just write inside the profile info. It will basically, you can see, right, it created two instances of one component. So for example, I use profile info here, so it gave me an image name and the p, right, like the p tag, and same here, right? So basically now I don't have to rewrite the whole component. So imagine, we already have three tags, but imagine we have like a more complex functionality. Then what will happen? Then it may, so what basically the benefit of this component is that whatever I write inside it, I don't have to rewrite it. I can reuse it wherever I want. All right. And once we will learn about props, this will become more powerful. Right now, all of this code basically is hard coded. I can't, like, dynamically change the name or the the profession, but we'll be able to do that once we learn about props. But before moving on to props, in the next video, what I want to show you is another thing, which is like nested components. So for example, this is a nested component, right? We have a component called app, and inside that we are using profile, right? But I also want to like show you another case for that, another scenario. So let's create like a input component, all right, like input with button, all right. You can name them whatever you want, just make sure that the first word is capital. So I'm going to import react from react, um, and so I'm going to define my component input with button, right? And what I'm going to return from here is the input, right, type text, and a button with it, which we call as submit, all right. And now I'm going to export it because I'm going to import that, and let's import that inside profile info, all right. So now you'll see the power of components, all right. I mean, I can create a custom component, and then inside that custom component I can use uh I can use the image, like normal HTML text, but I can also use my own component, or another custom component, and that's help us to build larger components. So what it says, input is not defined. Yeah, it's not. It should be smaller I, right? So the error was that I was bigger, so it was thinking that it's a custom component, but it is not. We want to use the HTML input, all right. So now you can see, right, we also have this HTML inside, and both of them, right, like because I used it inside the profile info, both the profile info instances got those input, right? And we can use that individually as well, right? For example, I go here and I paste this here. I have to import it, obviously. Let's use dot import and save it, and you can see, right, the input outside the profile info. And if you don't know how this auto import work, basically it's a VS Code feature, or you can also import from normally, like import just name of the component and then the path of it. And yeah, I mean, this is basically components. So the conclusion of the video is that React is based on component based design, and it lets you write modular components, small chunks of code that you can mix and merge to in order to like create bigger components and applications, all right. uh, One of the most important glue between different components to connect different components or pass data between these components is props and state, which we are going to talk about in the next video. I hope you like this video, and if you do, and if you want to keep following this course, please don't forget to subscribe the channel, like the video, share the video. Please put in your comments, if I am being, uh, you know, if you want, like, if you want me to explain more about the concepts, and I'll try to do that again, all right, in the next videos, all right. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye.